It's July 3rd, 2022. It's Sunday. It's late in the afternoon. I'm watching CBS Sunday Mornings, the one with Jane Pauley. Um, it has an interesting procession. I'm watching it within this, whatever. It makes mention in the opposite order, so I'm putting it in the order that I need. Um, about thalidomide, which I've heard before when I was in school in biomedical ethics at the community college level. Um, uh, like when presidents were actually presidents before the last one that I've ever heard, first and last one I've ever heard that actually made a message to the public to protect the people. Um, so John F. Kennedy is standing up here and he made an announcement and thanked the doctor that prevented the dangerous medicine from entering America or North America, or the States, whatever they were called back then before I arrived in 1962, is the date that they have on this publication. I thought that was really nice because that doesn't exist anymore. Then there's the busts of the former presidents, our entire history of this United States of America so far, before it goes away, and because the landscape has changed so viciously and disgustingly, and I don't see anybody fighting for it. I see people fighting for other people's freedoms, just not the people that have the history here. So I'm watching this in reverse. It goes to the bus. The bus, until 2004, had this very statuesque park that they belonged in. It had all of the former presidents, their profiles, their visual references in almost Easter Island like enormity and of significance, which I thought up until 2004. Why they would make a statue after 2004 is beyond me. I would have that I would have that crushed, considering that this is all taking a really dangerous turn. That's my election. Um, so I'm watching, and in 2004, lost their whatever, but some man saw purpose and point in the pedestal and the long history of running this idea of country and nation inside the northern hemisphere and the western hemisphere. Then it goes into the people movers and the airlines, which are a real threat to national security. When presidents were actually presidents and actually did the family thing and took the family responsibility of informing the public and his civic and public responsibility to heart, about the people of the nation are like the children of this office, and you are to protect them as well as our position in world beyond our borders. I don't know when that got rearranged or misaligned. It seems really easy platform to keep for obvious purposes, um, and to keep the threat of invasion out. However, with this airline thing, they sound like a bunch of whining, unnecessary, ungrateful children from everywhere. I don't know who raised them. And they're more upset about their plans. Half of them in the airports that are walking around don't even look like they're whatever. Now, I do remember back when I first flew, you did not get it. You had to go to a ticketing agent. There was a process. and your airline ticket was not necessarily, unless there was extenuating circumstance, was not necessarily issued, it was not a guarantee you'd get a seat. It was not a guarantee that you would fly to wherever it was that you were asking permission to fly. You had to ask permission. There's a reason for that. The security of our nation and others is always of utmost concern for the people who have significant relationships, and even some of the family members that have lost relationships but have not lost their ancestry or their ancestral roots, and they still have children and gardening issues to tend to. The fact that in this day and age, there is no vetting. You go online with a keyboard from any internet connection, you put your name and your money in, you press a button, and they issue you a ticket, and then you're good to go. That is one of the most frightening and most concerning facts about North America at this point. I don't know who in their right mind would allow such a process to take place. Flying is a privilege. It is not a 24-hour service. It has been abused just as much as some of the people on the ground trying to prevent the overconsumption of a lot of things. But the fact that there is no longer a vetting process, they no longer look to see if they're convicts. I mean, is there any form of security to get on a flight? I mean, back in the day, there was a booking agent, there was a travel agent, there was a nationally secured agency, and they did a whole process because there were not this unlimited schedule of flights all around the world. Why is it that at any point they would allow this level of people movement with no process in place for security? I mean, there's registered databases of criminals, of what they're into and up to, and yet they're getting on and off planes and around the world for years. And where's the process of security? I mean, I can't even get a president so far elected to get out in front of a podium and speak freely to the press and have him aired on the nightly news in New York if there's something that needs to be warned about as far as FDA or drugs go for public safety. This is a really frightening time. And it's an inherited problem from the poor management and leadership before I arrived, and inherently getting worse.
Same month of her abortion, President Kennedy praised a top Food and Drug Administration official, Dr. Francis Kelsey, for keeping thalidomide out of America.
Recent events in this country and abroad concerning the effects of a new sedative called thalidomide emphasize again the urgency of providing additional protection to American consumers from harmful or worthless drug products.
Now, I don't know where that broadcast was broadcast. I also, because I wasn't here, I also have never in my entire New York appearance ever heard President get on and warn about any drug class or drug whatever. There's just been no communication. There's been a communication deficit, and it's been getting worse.
Years after Cheston's 1962 case, some states legalized abortion.
And here's like this graveyard of past presidents that really frighten me as to where's this country headed. being that this is an Independence Day, or tomorrow will be, technically.
Eve of our nation's 246th birthday, Rita Braver takes us to a roadside attraction that's quite simply monumental.
If you've always
They have a very specific genealogy and look to what makes a North American United States of America president. Very, very narrow range of what is acceptable and what's tolerable. Once that's broken,
always wanted to get close to a head of state, then welcome to this swampy field just outside historic Williamsburg, Virginia.
I have my rain boots, so.
as a nation, I am embarrassed that at any level they find this acceptable upkeep. But then again, my care has been whatever, intolerable as well. But it is embarrassing at the level for which we claim that we participate in the world, that this is what our history has come to. Some dirty, undercared for, one caretaker out of all the human participants in democracy or republic or whatever they yell about in their non-significance. In my independent view, they have let everything get to this level of caretaking. That is frightening. Because when you let this amount of neglect and abandonment creep in, I mean, it says everything about management, leadership, and participation.
So I'm ready for the mud and all the mulch and everything.
Which is huge. The gigantic and decaying busts, some 20 feet tall, weighing several tons each, portray every president from George Washington to George W. Bush.
The photos doesn't do it justice.
But they're an accidental tourist attraction.
This whole thing is a vibe.
You kind of would expect them to be like in a museum, instead they're outside, just in the elements.
All on the site of Howard Hankins's recycling center.
I restored Jackson all the way, so he got painted up and he looked really good for a while.
Hankins, who was also a builder, had originally helped construct a park for the busts that opened in 2004 to capitalize on the Williamsburg tourism industry. But just 6 years later,
The economy hit them hard. They just couldn't keep the doors open, and they called me up and asked me if I'd crush them. So I crushed concrete.
Why didn't you want to say, okay, let's just get rid of these things? Nobody
Well,
wants
they're
it.
our history. I don't care who it is. You save it, and you learn from it.
so he decided to use his company resources and move the presidents, which resulted in damage to all of them, some of it major.
Lincoln over there, he got dropped and broke the back of his head open a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he'll be all right. I can fix it.
Hankins just plopped the heads on his property, but quietly word got out. Visitors started sneaking in and posting photos on social media, attracting still more attention from history buffs like John Flasholt.
I am a medical device sales professional by primary profession.
He's also a photographer, drawn to these eerie images. So he asked Howard Hankins to let him come in and take pictures here one night.
Which he obliged, I guess maybe because I was very polite to him, and then I was hooked.
What I don't understand is why has the participation, the leadership, and the manage slid so far off skew and off kilter? What are they all busy doing? Who's in charge of the internet is what I want to know, and why did they get away with throwing away a ticketing agent, a booking agent, and a national security agent that had to check very specific things with the man that holds up the sky? And how did they ever bypass that man and get to this level of disgusting and human trafficking and human people movement and throwing major security as on the back burner as if it didn't exist?
As an airline industry analyst and founder of Atmosphere Research in San Francisco. What went wrong this summer?
It seems everything has gone wrong. One, airlines are still working to rehire pilots, flight attendants, and other employees. Two, the FAA is still working to rehire people. Three, the airline scheduled a lot of flights. And four, we've just had bad weather, and a lot of it. You put that all together, and you have a fragile system that has no room left to flex. It just shatters.
Congress, taxpayers bailed out the airlines so they wouldn't lay anyone off. What do you mean there aren't?
I don't even know about that process. Nobody asked me. Again, I was just struggling to keep a roof over my head, my kids fed and clothed.
There aren't enough people.
The airlines got more than $50 billion in government subsidies to keep operating and to keep people working. But in the first few months, before any subsidies were guaranteed, and seeing their traffic fall.
Why are they getting subsidies and guarantees? Nobody guaranteed me after they took the man who holds the sky away and then tied me to some crazy donkey from 1976 and dragged me through the last 2 decades. Why should anybody else get subsidies or guarantees of any kind? They keep breaking stuff every time they get an opportunity and then complaining about it.
Fall by 96%, airlines panicked.
That pandemic panic led to the airlines offering early retirement to tens of thousands of employees. By December of 2020, more than 3,000 pilots took buyouts, worsening a growing pilot shortage. Delta pilots marked the start of this holiday weekend picketing at airports coast to coast. Pilot Maggie Eichhoff.
What Delta has done is overscheduled us. We just don't have the pilots right now to staff it.
And COVID continues to be an unwanted passenger, resulting in higher than normal sick calls. This is going to be a rough summer for flying.
It's going to be a rough summer, and so we're just going to step through it as best as we can.
Captain Laura Einsedler is.
Why aren't people taking trains or those obnoxious vehicles that they insisted that they need? Why are they so stuck on this privileged service of flight? It seems really dangerous. Promoting and growing populations or service industry this way. How do you get back to nationally secured flight measures where people have to go through a screening process? There's no guarantee, and it takes planning in order to use such a privileged service. Star 1978, Star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, its Earth, solar system, Milky Way universe, galaxy is broken, and its Bayside station, Bayside, New York, 11361.